Jesus said to them, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and estimate the cost to see whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish it, all those who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, 'This fellow began to build and was not able to finish.' Or what king, going out to wage war against another king, will not sit down first and consider whether he is with 10,000 to oppose the one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for the terms of peace. So therefore, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all of your possessions."
So, in our gospel reading today, large crowds followed along with Jesus as he made his way to Jerusalem, where he would ultimately have to follow his own advice. Don't start something you can't finish. He could have added little inspirational quotes like, "Winners never quit and quitters never win," or "When the going gets tough, the tough get going." Well, the crowds of people who followed Jesus did so for lots of reasons. Some of them enjoyed the show. He was entertaining. So imagine being there when two demon-possessed men approached Jesus. Imagine watching as Jesus ordered the demons to leave the men and enter a herd of pigs, and then watch those pigs race off a cliff and drown in the sea. Yeah, it's absurd, or sounds absurd, and somebody should have called PETA to report animal abuse. But my faith doesn't hang on whether Jesus actually did literally cast out demons. So set that aside and just imagine being in the crowd and watching it happen. Wouldn't you want to see more? To watch as Jesus healed people, to watch as Jesus called the religious authorities hypocrites and broods of vipers. Well, some people followed Jesus because they believed sincerely that he was the long-awaited Messiah. Others followed him because they opposed him and were constantly trying to trap him in one heresy after another. I'd be willing to bet, though, that the majority followed him for the free entertainment. When street musicians or street magicians wow us with their talents, how many people actually put money in their little violin case or their hat? There's no obligation to do anything. So if we tire of their talents, we just walk away. And that is if we even bother to notice they're there in the first place. I love the story about Joshua Bell, this amazing world-renowned violinist. He played outside a Washington, D.C. subway station one cold day as hundreds of commuters, perhaps thousands of people, rushed by. 7 people stopped to watch, for between a few seconds and a few minutes. Several children tried to watch, but their parents pulled them away because they had a schedule to keep. And so after Joshua Bell played for 45 minutes, his violin case that held a $3.5 million violin contained $32 in coins and small bills. And at the time, to watch him play at a symphony hall cost $100 a ticket. So Jesus turned to the large crowd that was following him and said, "If you can't carry your own cross, you can't follow me." And later he said, "If you can't give up your possessions, you can't follow me." And those are the kinds of things we expect to hear from Jesus. They're words that kind of flow in one ear and one out the other because they're nice and they're comforting. There's one more thing, however, that Jesus said in this passage that does catch our attention. So I gave Claire the wrong reading. Sorry. She was to read from the Message. I handed her the New Revised Standard Version. So my sermon, now I'm going to have to make up some differences as I go along. But what I told Claire to read is, or what I wanted her to read is, anyone who comes to me but refuses to let go of father, mother, spouse, children, brothers, sisters, and yes, even one's own self, can't be my disciple. But that isn't exactly what he said. Because I didn't want to hear the real words come out of the mouth of a preteen. Because as you heard, what Jesus said was, whoever does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even life itself, cannot be my disciple. And hate is not a word we expect to hear from Jesus. I mean, maybe hate evil, but certainly not hate family, especially because that's one of the 10 Commandments. Honor your mother and your father. So on Thursday, I started a new lunch and lectionary group, and 5 of us ate noodles and discussed this passage. We spent a great deal of time on our discomfort with the word hate. And we didn't mind so much refuse to let go of. Or as a children's Bible translates this phrase, you can't love others more than you love me. Which sounds better, it's a little more Jesus-y. But pretty much every other translation from the original language uses the word hate. And so if the use of the word is consistent, what does the word hate mean in this context? So one scholar suggested that hate in this context meant that you were willing to bring shame upon your family. And it's true that being a follower of Jesus at the time wasn't exactly something that made your family proud. I mean, it could bring ridicule from your neighbors, and that would in turn bring shame upon the family. And therefore Jesus is asking, are you willing to follow me even with those consequences? Almost every scholar proposes that the word hate here is simply hyperbole, an exaggeration to get our attention and the attention of the large crowd of perhaps mostly spectators following Jesus. But whether it's meant as an exaggeration or whether hate here is more about honor and shame, those interpretations may all be true. They're logical explanations. And yet, we can't read the word hate and not have an emotional response. And hate is meant to evoke a response. Hate speech, hate crimes, tacit approval with a wink and a nod. It causes us to feel. And one reason I think so many of us are exhausted right now is the energy it takes to hear about hatred almost every day. Every act of cruelty in the news drains us of even more energy. And sadly, one way to protect ourselves is to either ignore the news or even deny that hatred is the intent. How often have you heard the excuse, that's not what they really mean? It's a luxury, of course, that the targets of hate don't have. The targets of hate cannot ignore hate or simply wish that it didn't exist. So the last line of the passage in the Message is, simply put, if you're not willing to take what's dearest to you, whether plans or people, and kiss it goodbye, you can't be my disciple. And I like that line about plans and people, because that makes it thought-provoking. But the consistent word across translations, just like we have with hate, is the word possessions. To the large crowds following Jesus, he turned to say, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possessions. And we could take that to mean our stuff, our things, our closets and basements and attics and storage units filled with possessions. But I wondered what would happen if we tied those two words together. We tied the two words, hate and possessions, together. You think about who who proudly endorses hate? And what do they possess? Fear of losing power and privilege. Who openly promotes hate? People who feel they're losing something. And surely one easy answer is white supremacists. Theo Wilson is a black man here in Denver who went undercover online with white supremacists, the alt-right, for 8 months. It was a personal experiment. He created an online identity as John Carter and joined in the comments section to question President Obama's birthplace and bemoan why black people can be proud and white people can't. He later told CNN that what surprised him most was how hatred backfires on the hater. He noted that none of them were happy. And Theo even expressed some sympathy toward them. That their emotional entanglement in white identity caused them great suffering that comes out as rage, anger, and hatred. Most alarming, he said, and ironic, was that none of these guys was living their best lives, as they were spending all their time focused on blame. So I met Theo a few weeks ago at the hostility-filled meeting of the Stapleton Master Community Association. I've talked to you about that before. The meeting that ratified the vote to keep the name. And we had coffee on Tuesday, and we talked about how people should just start using another name. And he suggested Westbrook, who was the black man who infiltrated Stapleton's Klan. Wouldn't that be Actually, all of you who live in Stapleton could just start talking about living in Westbrook and then explain why we call it that. The black man, very light-skinned, could pass, who infiltrated Stapleton's Klan. So I found myself at Torpedo Cafe again 3 times this week, sort of unintentionally providing pastoral care to people who were involved in the effort to rename Stapleton for all of them impacted in some way for their activism, most particularly in the amount of time it took away from their families. And following their efforts and the recent disappointing vote, I suggested to each one they could choose to step away for a while, and that it would be at least okay to take a break. It's not an option any of them would even think to entertain. So then we started talking about how we can take care of one another, and even how the church could help connect a broader community of activists in Park Hill and Stapleton and build broader community, deeper, stronger. One woman spoke about people who avoided taking a position to keep themselves above the fray. She called it the myth of neutrality. And it reminded me of Desmond Tutu, who said, if an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse, and you say that you're neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. As the Archbishop said, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Dr. King had much to say about speaking up when it matters, including the ultimate measure of a person is not where they stand in moments of comfort and convenience, but where they stand in times of challenge and controversy. Or a phrase that sounds very much like Jesus in our passage today. Dr. King said, if a person hasn't discovered something they will die for, they're not fit to live. Which sounds almost as strident and uncomfortable as Jesus' use of the word hate. Is it just hyperbole? Or is he asking something more of us than we have considered before? To stop being mere spectators. So Ibram X. Kendi is a professor and director of a research and policy center at American University. And he has a new book called How to Be an Anti-Racist. Where systems oppress, we will work for change. Love and courage and justice and comfort and and change. The interplay of the cost and joy of discipleship. Realizing that more than gathering a larger crowd of spectators is that each of us become more deeply committed followers of a brown-skinned Palestinian Jew named Jesus.